Welcome to the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. We talk about how to make more money, grow your team members, and build the business of your dreams. I'm the host, Trevor Maddox, owner of Motion Ops, the premier software for service contractors. Enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Trevor here with the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. We're very excited for today's episode and our guest. We have Eunicia Peret, and fantastic guest. Obviously, as a lot of contractors, we're all looking to make money. As you make money and as you build your business, the big question is, what do you do with that money, right? Because, you could sit there and put a whole bunch of money underneath your bed, do kind of like what the cartels would do and dig a hole and put your money in the ground. Or you could be wise with it and invest, and that's what the whole topic of this discussion is going to be with Eunicia, so we're very excited for that. So just as a quick background, Eunicia is a wealth strategist. She's been helping her clients to elevate their wealth by minimizing taxes, maximizing structured growth opportunities, and optimizing exit strategies. So eventually you guys can grow your business and exit and chat with her. Her and her team have enabled hundreds of clients to significantly increase their wealth through the Wealth Freedom Formula, proprietary methodology developed on decades of combined team experience. So clients typically seek out Eunicia and her team at Excelstra because they carry the pain of paying too much in taxes. They also know that there are potentially better opportunities to optimize wealth accumulation, and they're typically worried because they don't have a well-defined exit plan to strategically position them for the future. So she's currently one of the top financial consultants in the country. She mentors and speaks, and also has in-depth management consulting experience in over 15 years of working with world-renowned financial service organizations such as banks, fintech, venture capital, and insurance companies. So Eunicia, we're very excited to have you here on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining. Love that background. But as far as it goes, thanks for being here, and we're excited to go ahead and chat today.
I love it. Let's do it, Trevor.
Okay. So I feel like we had a pretty good intro about yourself. One thing that I think is pretty cool. So we've known each other on and off for a few years now. And, just on your podcast a few months ago, but, I've loved every time just meeting you, hearing about you. And one thing I think is interesting about your background is you actually grew up in and around the trades, right? I think your dad owned rental property, so you helped him manage all the ongoing projects. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background involved in and around the trades? I think that's interesting to our listeners.
Absolutely. So even earlier than that, my father owned a construction company.
Oh, wow.
And this was before really early in my college career. I actually had the amazing pleasure of managing that company. I remember legal and contracts and negotiations, and just absolutely loved it. For shadowing, I then went down the path of strategy consulting. I did that for many, many years. And it was a very pivotal point in my career when I shifted out of the consulting and the corporate world. I basically went to what I thought I knew best, which was kind of the trades. I worked with a lot of investors, fix and flip properties, and my husband is also a guru on the real estate side. And so I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. And sure enough, I was out there with the workers, managing teams, rent circles around our general contractors. So you can imagine having a woman on the job site that the general contractor doesn't really like, was fun at times, but it's a world that I absolutely enjoy. And today we have the pleasure of working with a lot of individuals that are own trade businesses, very successful trade businesses. And it's all about how do we keep more of what we make.
Yeah. And I think from what I understand, you work with a decent amount of contractors, service contractors, business owners that own service companies. How do you feel like that background is translated for you to really understand their business and, what they can do to maximize their wealth?
It's played an integral part in not just working with the business owners that own trade-based companies, but also working with a lot of physicians even. We work with a lot of physician surgeons that actually own a lot of real estate properties, and some of them are on the investment side, some of them are more passive. But the beautiful thing is that it's given me an opportunity to realize a few things. Number one, they work really hard and oftentimes are misunderstood as, well, they're just in construction. And my perspective is, no, they're not just in construction. If you don't have good, amazing construction people on your job site or building your house, you're not going to have a very sturdy house. So they play a very unique role in just the day-to-day life. The other thing is, um, oftentimes they are marginalized with this whole thing. This was under the idea that, you know what, they're good at what they do, but maybe they don't make as good of financial clients because they're hands-on. They typically like to have access to real estate, as an investment, even for themselves. And so when I realized what was happening, even with my husband's and my money, because we were so passionate about what was happening, in the construction world, with the trade world, and more importantly, the fact that we enjoyed investing in real estate, but our financial advisors or financial planners did not. Why? Because they were not compensated by that. I realized that there's a reason why there are so many very successful business owners that own trade companies, construction companies, that are being marginalized, being put on what I call the corner of shame. And our whole philosophy is that nobody should be put in the corner of shame, especially the folks that are out there hustling. They're making great money. They're able to provide and hire individuals and give other people an opportunity to feed their families and live an amazing lifestyle. Why is it that they're marginalized and they're feeling that pain and that pressure every single day? It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, I agree. And, obviously a lot of people don't understand, but, call them blue collar millionaires. A lot of people don't realize how much money's in the trades, how much money a lot of business owners in the trades can make and are making. So, something that's interesting here, I just want to talk about this because I think, I look at investing for all stages and all backgrounds, right? So some people listening to this, they might have 5, 10,000 per year that they can invest. Some people may have 500,000 or 1 million a year they can invest, right? Just depending on their structure, how big their company is, and everything else. So, I think those strategies are probably different based on the stage that they're at. But like, what are your ideas? Like, if someone's got like 5 grand a year to invest, what should they be looking at? It's probably a little premature to bring on someone like you, but I mean, what do you think of as far as like life cycle of investing in different strategies based on income opportunities for clients?
That's a great question, Trevor. And what I would say is each individual needs to be met with where they're at. If somebody just has $5,000 to invest, that's amazing. The idea is that first and foremost, they need to become comfortable with actually setting that money aside and realizing that just because they're investing it, just because they're putting it aside, doesn't mean that it's not theirs anymore. Typically, what we're seeing, at more of the entry level is individuals having a hard time to part with their money under the premise in this false conception that that money is somehow gone. It's not gone. It's just growing for you in a different way.
I was just gonna say, it's funny. You see a lot of contractors sitting on piles of cash because they just feel awkward parting with it sometimes, right? It's like they'll just have the stack of cash sitting under their. I joke about it, under their bed or like in a closet, right? It is a hurdle if you've never done it before to kind of get over that. So I'm glad that you're articulating that.
Absolutely. And listen, what I tell people is it's not about doing away with the liquidity, because oftentimes they're like, oh my God, but what if something happens? We need to have that liquidity, but we mustn't have it to the point where it hinders us and it hinders our ability to grow. If you don't like money invested in the stock market or alternative types of investments, guess what? That money invested in the right vehicles could actually give you a platform where you can invest more in your business, in your future, in your kids, in real estate, and whatever it is that you want to do. And so, even though the strategies sometimes change, they go to a kind of a next level. When we're talking about $20,000, $50,000 investment invested per year, that still doesn't mean that individuals that are at the lower levels shouldn't be thinking about, again, setting that money aside. We're not parting with it. You're just allowing it to grow. And when we end up seeing, with it doesn't matter whether the individuals makes a little or makes a lot, when we focus on the growth of the money will continue to compound that much faster because now we're actually focused on that. And we all know that that which we focus on ends up continuing to grow. It's the same thing with money.
I love it. So one thing that's interesting, you work with individuals about tax strategies. One thing that I'm sure most of our viewers don't enjoy is paying taxes. So that being said, there's obviously things that you can do that are legal and systematized and things like that to minimize tax obligations. So What are just some of the strategies? I'm sure some of it's like your secret sauce that you maybe can't talk about everything, but what are some of the things you can kind of talk about with our audience that can help enlighten them as far as some of the things that are available to them?
So here's what I'll say before we even talk about strategies. One of the things that we know about business owners, especially in construction or the trade businesses, is to your point from earlier, we know you make a lot of money. How do I know? Well, because I used to manage such a company and because we work with a lot of individuals that own trade companies. And what we also know is that you typically pay more in taxes than you probably should, not because you want to, but because somehow some way you have access to you only have access to the type of people that don't really understand what tax planning and tax strategizing truly looks like. And so because of that, when you're paying, as one of our he's a client that he owns a construction company, and he said, Eunicia, the first time I had to pay six figures to the IRS, I was just like, my stomach was hurting. So whether it's six figures, we're talking about over $100,000, or it's less, or it's significantly more, it's still painful. And the thing that we need to focus on is the individuals and the teams that you might have worked with until now. Listen, they got us to where you got to. They helped you get to the success that you got to. The question that we have to ask is, at what point in time do we bring in a level of expertise that surpasses that of the individuals that you've been working with until now? Because here's the thing, if for the last 1 or 2 or 3 years you've been going to your CPA, you've been going to your financial team, and they're telling you, just rest assured, everything's fine, go buy another dozer, go buy another truck, go buy another something, we call that a toy, buy another toy so you can minimize your taxes. If that's the kind of individual that you're working with, again, they helped you get to where you're at. Let's celebrate that. But the reality is you're now at a point where you shouldn't be buying toys because they help you minimize your taxes. Now we need to talk about tax strategies to figure out what are the things that you can do for your business to legally minimize taxes, but not buy toys, especially if you don't absolutely need them. And unfortunately, we see a lot of that happening. And to answer your question, what are the different strategies? Listen, there are a myriad, and most of them, especially those that are typically, um, they're not going to be Googleable, as I call them. We're under NDA. Why are we under NDA? Why don't we talk about them publicly? Well, here's the thing, all of the tech's so called strategies and a lot of the things that have truly become almost like schematics and schemes, a lot of individuals end up being audited because of that. Why? Because everybody jumps on the bandwagon of, well, just minimize. You can do, if you do this, you cut your taxes. It's not as simple.
I was going to say there's a saying that says a money tree must not be spoken of, otherwise a money tree cease to exist. So it's kind of like the more that people start talking about it, the more the government's going to be like, oh, these guys are onto something. We're shutting this thing down. So I follow your logic with it. Yeah, it makes sense.
The thing is that a lot of people also they jump on these bandwagons, and those bandwagons end up being taken advantage of. So it might be something that is totally legit and it's 100% by the tax code, but because it's really stretched to the minimum, to the maximum, listen, the IRS has some really smart people working for them. And so the whole idea every time we work with clients on the tax strategy side is, first and foremost, what is it that the business needs? How do we think about it through the business lens? And then, yes, there are a lot of different programs that will enable individuals to say, okay, you can if you do this, you will be able to minimize taxes. But contrary to popular belief, you don't just go to that money tree and shake it out and it's going to just give you all the money. It doesn't happen that way. And when it does happen, if it sounds too good to be true, you might want to run the other way, because chances are in the future, there might be some questions. Who's going to be there to help you address those?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, super helpful and insightful. The other thing too is, you talk about how you can help your clients get lined up with better opportunities and what's out there. I think a lot of people are aware of the standard stuff, right? Like open up a Robinhood trading account. You can go trade S&P index and, all the other stuff, stocks, bonds. Like what are maybe some of the things that you're kind of guiding your clients towards that are helping them? And, what's your philosophy as far as helping your clients to build their wealth and find other opportunities that maybe have higher returns, less risk, everything else?
Oh my gosh, where do we start on that one? There are so many different opportunities, Trevor, and the reality is that the stock market might work for some, it doesn't work for others. And unfortunately, most people are kind of stuck there. I was talking to a physician just not long ago, and he was telling me that um, very, very highly skilled physician, by the way. And he was telling me that a good friend of his brother actually works for a venture capital fund. So this particular individual, this physician, he went to the friend's brother and said, "Hey, give me some investment tips." And at this point, the gentleman, the investor, basically said, "Hey, just put it the S&P 500 and let it run." And of course, we talked. This was some while ago, some while after. And he said, "Eunicia, that's where my money had been. But that's not where the wealthy put their money. So why isn't that we don't get the same access to the same strategies that the ultra wealthy get access to? And the reality is some of them are financial vehicles, some of them are not. Some individuals are a good candidate for different types of solutions that are offered again through financial vehicles or non-financial vehicles, traditional, non-traditional. But what if that individual wants to invest more in real estate? Why is it that the financial services beats us upside the head and says, "Oh, that's great, but," well, that but comes because those individuals are not compensated to see you or me or somebody else invest in real estate. So the way that we work with our clients is we're very much open to not only understanding what is it that they're passionate about, but figuring out how do we bring that into their broader strategy, which could potentially include real estate. For most, it does. It might even include alternative different types of investments, and that's okay as well. Our job is to make sure that once again we meet them where they're at, because if they don't, if they're not being met where they're at, money gets left to chance. Why? Because of fear, because of prior losses, because of challenges that they might have had with their team, because of lack of access to the type of strategies and support that they actually needed.
Yeah, I think you brought up something that's very interesting that I think is important for our listeners to just understand. I just want to slow us down for a second. So, um, many financial advisors, probably all of them, I don't know the exact numbers, but they get paid referral fees or commissions or whatever it is. I don't know the exact term, but they basically get paid to line you up with certain stocks, certain bonds, certain mutual funds and different packages and things like that. The reason why they're going to push you into a lot of these mutual funds and S&P indexes is because they make money off it. Like you said, real estate, they don't make any money off it. So why would they guide you towards that, even though statistically you probably could and will make more money off a lot of real estate investments. So it's just a really interesting dynamic for our listeners to be aware of when you're speaking with financial advisors and planners. You have to keep that in mind. And I think the way that you're set up, correct me if I'm wrong, Eunice, you're set up as a fiduciary, which is different than a financial planner or wealth advisor or whatever, because you get paid just to consult and advise people, and you're not really incentivized based on where they're putting their money. You win by helping them win. But can you explain a little bit about some of those differences and just help educate our listeners a little bit?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of nomenclature out there when it comes to financial planners. Most of them are not necessarily going to profess to be fiduciaries. Financial advisors will say, "Oh, absolutely, we're fiduciaries," and just listen to this, because you can trust us because we're fiduciaries, and by law we have to do the right thing. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's like you'd hope they do the right thing just to do the right thing.
You hope that they do the right thing. For me, it makes me sick to my stomach. So yes, full disclosure, we are fiduciaries, but here's what I'll tell you: we do not ever stand behind the title of fiduciaries, and everybody on our team that we work with falls under the same category. What we tell our clients is, listen, I don't need you to trust me because I said anything or I carry any sort of a title or or title or acronym or anything associated with my name. I need you to understand that when you have visibility into what are the options that you have access to, that historically you were not shown because of how other people might have been compensated, or maybe they didn't even have access to those solutions, that's when you realize that, oh my God, there's a better way of doing things. So the reason we work on a consulting basis is because at the end of the day, we're not selling our clients anything. Are we positioned to help our clients with their financial needs? We are. Is that where we start? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, if a client was to come to us and they never have a financial need, that's totally okay. But what we want to make sure is that at the end of the day, their portfolio and their overall wealth building efforts are aligned, are streamlined, and are optimized in order to make sure that they benefit from those in the long run. And when we do that, typically our clients will end up seeing results and money added straight to their bottom line to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Why? Because when you cut out the fat out of financial products, a beautiful thing happens. Now those financial products work for you even more than they would have before because they're designed for you and with you in mind, not with some commission in mind.
Yeah, I mean, if you gotta maybe go get a 10% return with a 2% commission that you got to factor for, it's like the the returns die pretty quick, right? So, cool. So I think overall, one of the goals of a lot of our listeners here is eventually they like to get to a point where they can have some sort of exit, sell their business, you know, hopefully in the ballpark of millions, tens of millions of dollars. You also help with that. So, like, I guess in preparation to that, are there things that our listeners should be doing a year, 2 years in advance to be ready for that transaction? Are there things that your team can do to help? I mean, what are your thoughts as far as just an eventual transaction or sale of a business?
I love that question. And the reason I love it is because, Trevor, I've seen too many individuals that have told us, and I'm going to sell. I want to sell in the next 5 to 7 years. And then something might have happened, whether it be the economy, whether it be personal. And then they come back and they go, now. I want to sell it now. As a matter of fact, we're working with a client right now. He has a very successful business, and he said, "Eunicia, I just can't deal with this anymore. I've tried to learn to love the business. He inherited it from a partner that passed away, kind of left him with a bunch of mess." He said, I just need to be done. So what we did is we corralled him with the right level of support. We brought in the experts to say, okay, what options do we have? And he was basically told, we can look to sell it, not fire sell it, but let's figure out how do we maximize the value if you want to just get rid of it like right now. There's a right and there's a wrong way to do that. And then the other opportunity is, listen, if you are okay to stick with it for the next couple of years, 1 to 2 years, we can optimize in such a way where you can actually get a really handsome return on that, on the hard work that you've put into it. So what I tell clients out of that same vein is the following. If you're thinking that at some point in time you're going to have an exit, that exit is going to come with the question of how do you maximize the value that you can get out of the business. Many trade industry business owners do not even think that, hey, my business has value. They think they resonate with the business to the extent where they are the business and the business is them. Guess what? You've built something that has value. So the sooner we start thinking about what that value looks like, the sooner you can start positioning it to say, okay, how do we extract that value in a way that's maximized? So that when you do decide to say, you know what, I'm going to sell it or I'm going to retire, you're retiring not just on your own terms, but you get the benefits of that hard work maximized versus just selling it for the sake of selling it because you didn't know, or maybe just letting it go because the business without you has no value. Arguably, there is a point in time when that happens, but if we work strategically on making sure that the business can stand on its own, then you shouldn't have, and you're not going to have those worries. And then the other thing that happens is too many times individuals don't think, even if they think about the sale, they don't think about the implications of the tax strategies and the tax planning prior to that. So what I tell clients is, and individuals, if you're looking to have an exit in the next 5 to 7 years or sooner, the sooner you start looking at all of those components, the better off you're going to be with that specific exit strategy.
It's awesome. I love it. Proper planning, right? It's the most important thing. So, okay. So something's interesting. Obviously, you've got different seasons for investing. I would like to think that strategies probably shift a little bit between, when times are booming versus a little bit of a recession right now. I think most people agree we are in a little bit of a recession. Things have definitely changed. Higher interest rates. What are some things that you think our listeners or investors should be thinking of or considering to kind of adjust for the fact that it's more of a recessionary type of investing environment? I'm of the opinion that money's always made. It just shifts how you're making money and where you're making money, right? That's always my opinion. But yeah, I mean, what's your thought or take on that?
No, I totally agree with what you said. Money always shifts. It's a matter of just I hate to say having a strategy. A large part is about having a strategy. It's about making sure that when you're working with your team, especially on the financial side, that they're able to account for those challenges. And especially when we're dealing, a lot of individuals in the trades businesses are kind of struggling with, there are a lot of clients just sitting, to your point, they're sitting on cash. They're not wanting to do anything. They're waiting to see what's going to be tomorrow with the elections and everything else. And what we see that ends up happening is, because of that, they lose trajectory, because now they might be saying, you know what, I'll wait for the next couple of months, and the next couple of months ends up into 6 months, and ends up in a year, and ends up into 2 years. And when we look backwards, and you're thinking about, let's say, putting aside 20, 40, $50,000, if not more, now if you would have just done a little bit for yourself, a little on a monthly basis, you could easily be sitting on an additional 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, whatever that looks like. It's relative for where you're at as you're listening to this. That's the value of proper planning. That's the value of you staying engaged, not just with the business and the business's finances, but with your personal finances as well. Because one of the challenges that we see is, all too often, business owners relate so much to just the business financials that they never really focus on the personal. We actually are in the process of bringing on a large builder out in Florida. And it's one of those like chicken and egg kind of situations. A partner of his proposed that they go in and they invest in all of these other businesses, but the liability on the personal side is so high, and it needs to be mitigated by kind of breaking the ties between the business and the personal. And if we just listen to what the partners and somebody else is going to tell us, we're going to potentially miss that opportunity. And when really hard times potentially come down the pipeline, then guess what? It's not just the business, but it's the personal side that suffers as well. So we need to make sure that the two of them are mitigated. They're treated together, but they're also treated separately, so that we can minimize the overall risk to our future.
I like it. I mean, that's a great point. I think sometimes as business owners, it's like, hey, it's my business. It's okay. I can take some welts. I'll let my personal finances slide for a little bit. We just got to get out of this hole, whatever. But as a business owner, you got to make sure you keep both things tight. You got to make sure that you keep your business financials and also your personal financials all in line, and very well orchestrated and organized, and just don't let it get too out of whack. So, okay, Eunicia, I've got a couple last questions here for you. This has been a fantastic conversation so far. I'm sure our listeners have enjoyed. And again, I mean, if you think about it, you run a service business, you run a construction business. We're all in it to make money. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's Warren Buffett that says this, but I think Warren Buffett says, make your money work for you. Something along the lines, make your money work for you. You're going to be working every single day for the rest of your life. And so with time, you have more and more workers, more and more dollars out there working for you. And that's the whole game plan is like, and actually as a business owner, find it more motivating to go work hard when I have a game plan of what I'm going to do with my money. Because it's like, now I got to make money, take some money off the table, go put it to work. For me, it's very motivating just to think of it that way. So it's been a fantastic interview, and I think this is giving our listeners some stuff to get motivated about, go set some bigger goals, bigger ambitions, so they can come back to you and get some advice as far as how to deal with these problems. So, okay, questions that I've got is, if you had to choose one business book that you could recommend as your favorite business book, and you've got some time consulting and everything else too, like what business book would you recommend as far as like your favorite business book of all time?
Who Not How.
Who Not How. It's a great book.
Who Not How. It's an amazing book. And listen, it's a very simple concept. It's a very simple concept, but too many people, especially business owners, that we just grapple with this idea that we can do it all. And I am at fault too. I literally have to pull myself back to say, okay, I can do it all, but is this the best use of my time? And for me, one of the things that really drives me, you want to know what it
What's
is,
that?
Trevor? It's the clients. So anytime I'm dealing with the clients and I'm thinking of, okay, if I do this versus I focus more of this time on this particular problem for, or this particular solution for our clients, where is it going to be? And whenever I think about that, it's very easy to say, you know what? I can let somebody else on my team handle it. I get introduced to some unbelievable individuals, and oftentimes, of course, they end up in my inbox because the introduction is one-on-one from some friend or somebody. And I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter who gets introduced. At the end of the day, I have to focus on what I have to focus on, where my time is best spent to deliver value in the way that I need to. So what do? A lot of those introductions now end up speaking with our client services director. Why? Because he's an awesome guy. And because as long as it's a great mutual discussion, they'll end up to me anyway. But by the time they end up and we end up discussing, it ends up being an amazing relationship versus kind of going at it. So that's a great example of, yeah, it's who, not how. It's not we're really good at what we do, but let's bring in the experts in areas that they're just not our strong suit.
I love it. Yeah, we can't be experts at everything, unfortunately. So, great book. It's all about delegation and bringing the right team around you. So, if you could spend an entire day with a business mentor, living, past, whatever, who would it be and why?
You actually just mentioned him. It would be Warren Buffett. And the reason for that is because people quote him in whatever they feel like it's applicable, they quote him. And obviously he's achieved a lot of success. And yes, his quotes are very applicable. You can skin that situation whichever way is needed. And so when I think about everything that he's achieved, I would sure just to spend a day in the life of or just shadow him, it would be pretty darn amazing.
He's unreal. He thinks 5 levels above most people around him. So, awesome. Well, Eunicia has been fantastic. For our listeners, if they want to engage with you, chat with you, hire you, just whatever, how do they get more Eunicia in their life?
They can get more Eunicia in their life by following Eunicia Peret on social media. Engage with us there, with me there. And more importantly, if you want to just have a conversation to figure out which way is up for you, or you just have follow-up questions, go to excelstra.com. That's excelstra.com. And you'll be able to book a call with myself or somebody on our team. Let's address the questions that you have so that you can make sure you can either say, yep, I'm good, I'm golden, or gee, I've got some opportunities. And about that cash under the mattress, it loses value for you very quickly,
After
especially
inflation.
with the latest rate of inflation.
After inflation, you're going to lose between 4 and 8% every single year. You need to put your money to work.
100%, yes.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing that. Sorry, I just got to talk about this because I think it's so important for people to realize this. Even if you get a 12% return on your money after inflation, that's really net 8, net whatever, 6%. And so you just got to keep that. I even do the math on that right, but you get the gist. It's net 4, net 8%. You got to make sure that you're putting your money to work to outpace inflation, to outgrow it and everything else. And guys, Eunicia is fantastic, as you can tell. Again, I think the whole purpose of this podcast is as business owners, we want to work hard. We want to go make money. But let's not just go make money to make money and sit on cash. Let's be wise with it. Let's invest in it. Let's get our personal finances in line. Now, Eunicia here, she's a fantastic resource. So if you guys are looking for any resources, definitely reach out to her, engage with her, chat with her. Very important discussion. Eunicia has been fantastic. Thank you so much for making the time. Thank you for joining. I feel like I've been uplifted. Hopefully everyone here has also been uplifted as well. And thanks again, guys. Another episode here of Service Contractor All-Star. We'll see you. This has been the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. We talk about how to make more money, grow your team members, and build the business of your dreams. I'm the host, Trevor Maddox, owner of Motion Ops, the premier software for service contractors. Join us next time for more amazing content.